So just want to say in regards to this video, I'm just trying to explain my way anyways of finding port timing numbers and or duration. I'm not going to get into what it all means or how or why somebody adjusts numbers to where they are. This is just how to figure it out. You can do your own reading and talk to your own people and come up with a plan. But anyways, this will be how to find your port timing numbers and your durations, and you can take those numbers and go from there. That being said, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has. You can be as direct as you want, and if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. But if I do know, or I think I have a very good educated guess about something, I'll tell you what I think or my opinion. Just not going to try and explain everything in a video, because honestly, I don't think there's any amount of time that would be long enough. I read everything I could on every forum and every book for probably 2 solid years before I got into it and actually felt comfortable. And with that, I was able to pretty much dive right in because I already had a good understanding. I just had to see it in person. So anyways, any questions you have, feel free to ask in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. So now that we've found top dead center, we're going to go about finding our port timing. So we'll start with the exhaust port, and what we're going to do is rotate the crank the direction of travel. The piston's going downwards. We're going to shine a light through the spark plug hole, and we're going to look in through the exhaust port, and when we first see light, that's going to be our port opening number. So bring you around here. Hopefully get this lined up so you guys can see. See if I can get you focused in here. So light through the spark plug hole, rotate the engine the regular direction of travel. And right there you can see light start to show. So everyone will measure this differently and they'll see it at a different point, but when you're building your saws, they'll all be consistent. Anyways, I would consider that the first ray of light for me. So that puts our port timing at roughly 102. So, like always, it's good to double check your numbers. So I roll it back through, 3 or 4 times and make sure I'm getting an accurate reading. Let's see if we can get you a little closer here. So that would be first ray for me. Some people might read it a little differently. They might read that as first ray, but once you do it, you'll do all yours the same. And once again, we have from top dead center 45, 90, 95, 100, and 2 degrees is the exhaust port opening. So we'll record that and we'll move on to the intake. When it comes time to finding your duration, amount of time the port is actually open, you can calculate it off of your existing numbers, or an easier way is just to count it on the degree wheel. So you do find your port opening just like you did previously. That's where it just opens. Check your wheel. Again, we're at 102 degrees. We're going to roll it through all the way down through bottom dead center and back up again until that port closes. Right there. So starting on the downstroke, that port would open at 102. We roll it all the way through bottom dead center, back up again until that port closed. So if you use 102 as your starting point, basically 0, you'd have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees. That port is open. So 156 would be the duration that that exhaust port was open. So the down and dirty method to finding your duration without having to count odd numbers around the wheel or do any math, you can just leave the center set bolt a little bit loose. I mean, it's snug, it's just not super tight. So you can hold the crank and stationary and roll your wheel. Like I said, it's still snug, it's just not super tight. So the easy way to find your duration would be just to roll this down through the stroke till that exhaust port we'll use for example opens right there. Hold the crank stationary and set your wheel to 0. Then roll it the rest of the way down through and back up until it closes. Right there. So since we were zeroed the exhaust port at the exhaust port opening, we rolled the motor through the bottom and back up to where it closed. We're just going to measure the duration. So we have 0, 45, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 155, 156. 156 degrees of duration. Kind of the same way we did it before, but this is easy, 0 to whatever your number is. You aren't having to keep track of an odd number through the degree wheel. So anyways, a little simpler way of doing it. Not the way I do it, but it works also. So move on to the intake port. So start with the degree wheel and crank at 0, top dead center. And the way my brain works it, the exhaust opening and upper transfer opening numbers are referenced after top dead center. The intake opening, in my mind, is before top dead center. So when I figure my port timing number for now on a 2-stroke, it's the same difference. But when you got something stuck in your brain, it'll only work one way for you. So anyways, you'll get the same number either way, but I usually roll the crank clockwise, which would be reverse in rotation, which sets it before top dead center. Like I said, you'll get the same reading either way you do it, but that way, that's your number when the bottom of the skirt just clears the floor of the intake on the way up. That's the intake opening timing number. So what that looks like at the intake port, if you roll your crank clockwise, you'll see right there is when that, this is bottom dead center, if you will. And so on the piston on the way up, when that piston skirt just clears the intake floor, that's going to be your port timing number. If we get a little better view there for you, you can see just the slightest little crack there. Now, again, everybody's going to look at this different and measure it different, but when you do your saws, they'll all be consistent because you'll look at it the same way every time. So, if you come around, we have a port timing number, top dead center. So we're before top dead center. 50, 60, 5, 6, 7. 67 degrees. So that's the number we'll record for our intake timing number. And again, I roll it through a few different times just to make sure I get the same number 3 or 4 times in a row. As long as I get the same number every time, then I'm happy. And again, on the money, we got 67. So that's what we'll use for our intake port timing number. So, same thing goes for the intake port. So here we are again, 67 degrees before top dead center. So we're going to roll it all the way up through, back down till it closes. And since it's a 2-stroke, simple logic will tell you 67 degrees again. So what that means as far as finding your duration on the degree wheel, you're at top dead center, roll the motor backwards, because we're before top dead center is where we're measuring from. So when that intake port just floor that, or the skirt of that piston just clears the intake floor, we're at 67 degrees before top dead center on its way up. So 67 degrees before top dead center, rotate the engine the direction of travel up through top dead center. So now that port's all the way open, and now it's after top dead center on its downstroke, and that piston skirt is starting to cover the intake port. So when that intake port closes, like I said, simple logic on a 2-stroke, you end up at 67 degrees again. Again, you could count out starting with 67 degrees here before top dead center. Right there would be your effectively 0. There's 67 degrees on this side of top dead center, and I have 67 degrees on that side of top dead center. I can just add the two together, and come up with 134 degrees of intake duration. Okay, so when it comes time to find your upper transfer opening timing number, the way I do it is, again, start at top dead center, and I get a flashlight shining through the spark plug hole, and I look in through the exhaust port, and hopefully this will show up for you guys. I'll do my best here. And as you rotate piston down like you normally would, the exhaust port opens. Shortly after that, you'll see the upper transfer in there, and you'll be able to roll the piston down through and get a rough idea. I usually actually go past and come back to it, but you'll be able to get a rough idea of where the upper transfer opens. Just eyeballing it through the exhaust port, I'd say it's right there. You come around here, and here we are at 0. After top dead center, 45, 90, 100, 110, 120, 125, 126. So our transfers, upper transfers open at 126 degrees after top dead center. So I'll try and do my best so that you can see, but for finding my transfer roof opening point, I got a rough guesstimate, or a fairly close guesstimate anyways, looking through the exhaust port with the light shining in the spark plug hole. So I have a rough idea where it is, but I want to verify that. So I take a ring. Sorry, this is a pain to do. Anyways, I take the ring, compress it, stick it down in the bore. Make sure the ring end gap is not in line with any open ports. So I take that ring just like that, leave it low in the cylinder, and then with the crank at bottom dead center, I reinstall the cylinder. What that's going to do is it's going to push that ring up inside the bore. Now, I'd normally bolt this down, but because I find that's the only way you get an accurate reading. You think holding pressure on it's the same, but it doesn't have the same clamping forces when it's bolted down. So anyways, for this purpose though, we'll hold this down. So the engine at bottom dead center, you can roll it either direction, it doesn't matter. But we remember our transfer opening number was 126 degrees. So we're going to hold down on this, and we're going to roll this to 126 degrees, whatever way you want to go, it doesn't matter, after, or not after, on either side of top dead center. So we can go 90, 100, 110, 126 is what we're going to roll this to. Then you're going to roll it back down to bottom dead center, and you pull the cylinder off, and what you end up with is a ring that was pushed up with the top of the piston. So whatever side of the ring you see here, the bottom of the ring, if you will, is where the top of the piston stopped. So what you should end up with is a ring in a location. See if I can get this so you can see. You should end up with a ring in a location where it's right at the edge of those transfer ports where they open, which would be the top, towards the top of the cylinder. So, oh, that's a little better angle. So 126 was close. It's off by just a touch maybe. So I would reassemble and roll the piston back, and instead of 126, maybe go to 127 and see if that ring lines up just perfect with the edge, the top edge of those transfer ports. And then you know you got an accurate reading. Since we're doing a 350, I know the 359s are the same. I'm not sure if there's others or not, but they have these nifty little transfer covers on them. So pop those off instead of going through all the trouble. You just look through the side here and see where the transfer opening is. Makes porting them a dream also. Anyways, get more into the rest of it later.